The click of the lock on her own office door was louder than any gunshot. Sophia Reyes, co-founder and chief architect of Auratech Solutions, was being escorted out of her own building. Her husband, CEO Marcus Thorne, didn't even flinch. He just smoothed the lapel of his Tom Ford suit, his new VP of Strategy, Chloe Bennett, smirking at his side. He had just fired his own wife in front of the entire board, citing performance issues. But Marcus made one fatal error in his arrogant takeover, one mistake that would cost him everything. He forgot who the investors really trusted. To the outside world, Marcus Thorne and Sophia Reyes were the definitive Austin power couple. Their company, Auratech Solutions, had exploded onto the tech scene, disrupting the renewable energy market with an AI-driven efficiency platform. Marcus was the face, charismatic, sharp, with a smile that charmed venture capitalists and a voice that commanded gala dinners. He was on the cover of Forbes under the headline, "The Man Who Electrified the Future." But anyone inside Auratech knew the truth. Marcus was the spotlight. Sophia was the power plant. Sophia was the chief architect, the co-founder, the brains behind their revolutionary platform, codenamed Odyssey. While Marcus was giving keynotes in London, Sophia was in the Austin headquarters, sleeves rolled up, debugging code with her engineers at 2 a.m. She was the one who had personally recruited their top talent. She was the one who managed the books with a surgeon's precision. She was the one who had turned Marcus's vague, grandiose vision into a tangible, billion-dollar product. They had met in graduate school. He was the ambitious business student. She was the brilliant engineer. They fell in love over business plans and late-night coding sessions. They built Auratech from their garage, fueled by shared dreams and takeout. But in the last year, as the company's valuation soared past the 10-figure mark, something had shifted. The company had hired Chloe Bennett 6 months prior. She was a recent MBA graduate, all sharp angles, sharper ambition, and a ruthless understanding of social media marketing. Her title was Brand Disruptor, a role she seemed to take literally. She bypassed the entire management chain, including Sophia, to report directly to Marcus. Sophia, ever the pragmatist, had tried to warn him. "Marcus, her proposals are all flash, no substance. She's projecting 300% growth on initiatives with no foundational data." Marcus had waved her off, a new, dismissive gesture he'd adopted. "You're too in the weeds, Soph. You're an engineer. Chloe thinks in big picture terms. She's what we need to get to the next level." Sophia felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. It wasn't just that he was dismissing her professional opinion. It was how he did it. He had started to talk at her, not to her. The late-night coding sessions had been replaced by late-night dinners Marcus attended alone. The shared dreams had become his, and his alone. The tension came to a head over Project Phoenix. It was Chloe's pet project, a flashy, consumer-facing app that Sophia's analysis proved would be a catastrophic cash burn with little hope of return. It diverted resources from Odyssey, the company's core product. "We can't afford this, Marcus," Sophia argued in his glass-walled office, the Austin skyline sprawling behind him. "It'll set back the Odyssey 2.0 launch by a year. The investors funded us based on Odyssey." "The investors will love it," Marcus said, not looking up from his phone. "It's sexy. Odyssey is infrastructure. It's boring. Chloe is already lining up influencers. It's the future. It's a vanity project." Sophia's voice rose, frustration cracking her usual calm. "It's technically unsound, and the budget is—" "The budget," Marcus said, finally looking up, his eyes cold, "is my decision. You're the COO, Sophia. Your job is to operate. My job is to lead. Or have you forgotten who the CEO is?" Sophia stared at him, the man she had loved, the man she had built an empire with. He was a stranger. "I haven't forgotten, Marcus. I'm just worried you have." She walked out of his office, the knot in her stomach now a block of ice. She knew she was in a fight, but she mistakenly believed it was a fight for the company's future. She didn't realize it was a fight for her professional life. The betrayal, when it came, was not a single stab but 1,000 cuts. It began personally. Marcus, who once shared every detail of his calendar, now had his entire schedule marked private. He was distant at home, glued to his phone, smiling at texts he never read aloud. The financial red flags came next. Sophia, as COO and acting CFO, still had oversight of the company's finances. She saw the expense reports. Dinners at Uchi for client development, on nights she knew he was working late. A suite at the St. Regis, booked for a strategy off-site that she was never invited to. And then the Project Phoenix budget. Marcus had bypassed her authority and greenlit a $5 million wire transfer to a new consulting firm she had never heard of. Ben Thorne Innovations. Ben Thorne, she whispered to herself, her blood running cold. Bennett and Thorne. She didn't need to be an engineer to solve this equation. The consultants were Marcus and Chloe. They were siphoning company money. She decided to confront him. Not at the office, but at home. In the sterile, white-on-white minimalist mansion their success had bought them. A place that had never felt like a home. She waited for him in the vast living room. He came in just after 10 p.m., smelling of expensive whiskey and a perfume that wasn't hers. "We need to talk, Marcus," she said, her voice steady. She held up the printout of the wire transfer. Ben Thorne Innovations. "What is this?" Marcus didn't even have the decency to look guilty. He looked annoyed. He loosened his tie and tossed his jacket on a 20,000 armchair. "It's a special projects vendor," he said dismissively. "Chloe's team is managing it." "Chloe's team?" Sophia's voice was sharp. "It's registered in Delaware. The name on the articles of incorporation is Chloe Bennett. You're transferring $5 million of Auratech money into your Mistress's shell company. This isn't just an affair, Marcus. This is embezzlement." She expected him to panic, to deny, to argue. She did not expect him to laugh. It was a cold, quiet laugh. "You're brilliant, Sophia. You always were. You see all the angles, all except the one that's right in front of you." "What are you talking about?" He walked to the bar and poured himself another drink. "You're right. It's not just an affair. It's a partnership. Chloe sees the future. You're stuck in the past. You're still acting like we're in a garage, worried about every penny." "I'm worried about fraud," Sophia shouted. "You're worried about being replaced," he shot back, his voice slicing through the room. "And you should be. You're too cautious. You're a drag on my vision. Auratech isn't our company anymore, Sophia. It's my company. And I'm tired of you acting like my equal." The cruelty of it winded her. This wasn't just about another woman. This was a coup. "If you think," Sophia said, her voice shaking with rage, "that you can just steal from this company, and I won't report you to the board and the investors, you are a fool." Marcus took a sip of his whiskey. He smiled, a truly terrifying, empty smile. "You're right, I can't let you do that. Which is why I've already scheduled an emergency board meeting. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Don't be late." He turned and walked up the grand, floating staircase, leaving her alone in the cold, white room, the evidence of his crime feeling useless in her hand. She thought she was bringing the weapon. She didn't realize he had already fired his. Sophia didn't sleep. She spent the night gathering her own files. The original Odyssey pitch deck, the patent filings in her name, the performance reviews of the engineering team, all of whom she had hired, and the undeniable proof of the Ben Thorne Innovations wire transfer. She was walking into a war, and she intended to win it. She arrived at the boardroom at 8:50 a.m. The mood was funereal. The other board members, 2 venture capitalists and 2 independent directors Marcus had hand-picked, wouldn't meet her eye. Marcus was already at the head of the table, flanked by the company's high-priced corporate lawyer. Chloe Bennett was sitting in a chair against the wall, not at the table, a tactical position of an observer, or a successor. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Marcus began, his voice smooth and rehearsed. "Marcus, before you start," Sophia interjected, placing her files on the table. "I believe this meeting was called because of serious financial irregularities I've uncovered." "It was," Marcus said, not missing a beat. "Yours." Sophia froze. "What?" Marcus nodded to the lawyer, who began distributing a new, glossy folder to each board member. Sophia's hands trembled as she opened hers. Inside was a special report compiled by an independent auditor. It was filled with charts and graphs that, at first glance, looked damning. It accused her division of gross financial mismanagement, projected timeline failures on Odyssey 2.0, and creating a hostile work environment. It was a masterpiece of fiction. The timeline failures were because he had pulled her best engineers for Project Phoenix. The financial mismanagement was her blocking his illegal transfers. "These are lies, Marcus." Sophia was on her feet. "You fabricated this. He's embezzling all of you. Look at this." She held up her own file, the wire transfer proof. The lawyer spoke up, his voice a monotone drone. "Ms. Reyes is referring to a payment to Ben Thorne Innovations, a pre-approved special projects vendor. It was unanimously signed off by the CEO and Ms. Reyes." He produced a document, and there it was, the approval form for the $5 million transfer, with her digital signature at the bottom. "I never signed that," she whispered, horrified. "Your digital credentials were used, Sophia," Marcus said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "We've been worried about you. You've been erratic, forgetful. The stress is clearly getting to you, which is why this is so difficult." He stood up. "The board has been presented with overwhelming evidence of gross negligence and mismanagement. We are in a critical growth phase and cannot afford a COO who is actively sabotaging our future vision. Effective immediately, Sophia Reyes is terminated from her position at Tech Solutions." The room was silent. The 2 VCs looked uncomfortable but resigned. Marcus's hand-picked directors nodded gravely. "You can't," Sophia whispered, looking at Marcus. "We built this. I built this." "You built the engine, Sophia," Marcus said, walking over to her. "But you're not a driver." "I am." He gestured to the door, where 2 security guards had quietly appeared. "Please escort Ms. Reyes from the building. Her access has been revoked." Chloe Bennett stood up and smoothed her skirt. She finally looked at Sophia, her eyes glittering with triumph. "I'll be sure to take good care of your office." Sophia was speechless. The betrayal was so total, so absolute, it was almost brilliant. He had framed her. He had used her own credentials to sign off on his theft, then used the theft as evidence of her incompetence. The security guards, men she had hired, flanked her. "Ms. Reyes, please." She walked out of the boardroom in a daze. The open plan office, filled with people she'd mentored, went silent. Everyone stared. It was the longest walk of her life, past the Odyssey team, past her assistant, who was already crying, to the elevator. Her keycard, which used to grant her access to the highest levels of the company she'd founded, was deactivated before she even reached the lobby. The guard took it from her hand. She stood on the sidewalk in downtown Austin, the bright Texas sun feeling like a spotlight. She had her handbag and the clothes on her back. In the space of 10 minutes, she had lost her company, her job, her husband, and her name. The first 24 hours were a blur of systematic erasure. Her company email was shut down. Her access to the company's shared drive, which held 10 years of her life's work, was severed. When she tried to access her personal bank account, the joint account she shared with Marcus, a red "Access Denied" message flashed on the screen. He had drained it. Every last cent. He had been planning this for months. She went to their home. His home, she corrected herself, to get her things. Her key wouldn't work. A new private security guard, not one from Auratech, stood at the gate. "Sorry, ma'am. This is private property. We've been instructed not to allow a Ms. Sophia Reyes on the premises. Those are my clothes in there, my personal effects. A service will be by to drop off your belongings at a location of your choosing, ma'am." She was, quite literally, locked out of her own life. The press release hit the Wall Street Journal the next morning. Auratech Solutions announces leadership shakeup. CEO Marcus Thorne to absorb COO duties as company pivots to new Project Phoenix initiative. Sophia Reyes departs company. Departs! It was so sterile, so clean. Her friends, her colleagues, her network, they all read it. Her phone, which usually buzzed non-stop, was silent. No one knew what to say. Was she a victim, or had she really, as the rumors suggested, had a breakdown and tried to sabotage the company? Marcus, ever the master marketer, was controlling the narrative. Sophia, the woman who had managed $1 billion budget, was forced to call her sister, humiliated, to borrow money just to rent a small, sterile apartment in a nondescript complex far from the glittering downtown she had helped build. She hired a lawyer, a sharp woman named Tara. The news was grim. "The prenup is ironclad, Sophia," Tara said, sliding the document across her desk. "It was signed when the company was worthless. It stipulates that in the event of a divorce, all shares of Auratech remain with the founding CEO. But I was a co-founder." "But he was the CEO," Tara said gently. "And in the corporate filing, you're listed as co-founder and COO. He's listed as co-founder, chairman, and CEO. His title trumps yours. As for the firing, it's a right-to-work state. They can fire you for any reason, as long as it's not discriminatory. He built a case, however false, for cause. It's your word against his, and the board's." Sophia felt the last bit of fight drain out of her. She was not only broke, she was legally trapped. She had been outmaneuvered at every turn. For a week, she barely left the beige-walled apartment. She was the ghost of her former self. She would see Marcus and Chloe in Texas monthly, attending a charity ball, smiling, looking radiant. The new it couple of the Austin tech scene. They were building their future on the ashes of her life. She had spent her entire adult life building Auratech. It was her passion, her identity. Without it, she was nobody. The humiliation was a physical weight, pressing down on her chest until it was hard to breathe. Marcus hadn't just fired her. He had broken her. Just as Sophia hit true rock bottom, her phone rang. It was an unknown number with a Boston area code. She ignored it. It rang again, immediately. She picked it up, her voice hoarse. "Hello? Is this Sophia Reyes?" The voice was gravelly, old school, and radiated authority. "Who is this?" "My name is Arthur Donovan. I run Donovan Capital. We were the lead investors in your Series B round." Sophia sat up straight. Arthur Donovan. He was a legend. Old money, a kingmaker in the VC world. He wasn't on the company board. He managed such a massive fund that he placed his subordinates on boards. He was the one who, after her initial pitch 5 years ago, had looked past Marcus's charisma and asked her 3 incredibly specific questions about her scaling algorithm. He was the one who had convinced his partners to invest. "Mr. Donovan, yes, of course. I'm not with the company anymore." "I'm aware," Arthur said dryly. "I just got off a 90-minute call with Marcus Thorne. He was trying to sell me on this Project Phoenix nonsense. He wants to accelerate our next round of funding." Sophia's heart hammered. What did you tell him?" There was a long pause. "I told him he was a fool. And then I told him I needed to see the numbers. The real numbers. Not the slide deck he and that marketing girl put together." Another pause. "Sophia, I've been in this business for 40 years. I've seen visionaries, I've seen charlatans, and I've seen workhorses. Marcus is a charlatan, and you were the workhorse. The numbers at Auratech stopped making sense the day you left. The burn rate has tripled. The Odyssey 2.0 pipeline has flatlined, and this Project Phoenix smells like vaporware." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. It wasn't pity, it was validation. He framed me, Arthur," she whispered. "He's embezzling. He and Chloe Bennett, they set up a shell company." "Ben Thorne Innovations," Arthur said, and Sophia's jaw dropped. "I saw the wire transfer. It stuck out like a sore thumb. Marcus told me it was a discretionary R&D fund you set up and mismanaged." "That's a lie. He faked my signature." "I know," Arthur said, "because you, Sophia, would never have been stupid enough to give a shell company such an obvious name. That's pure, unadulterated arrogance." Sophia let out a choked laugh. It was the first time she'd laughed in weeks. "I can't prove it, Arthur. I'm locked out of everything." "You're not," the investor said. "As the primary stakeholder, I have the right to a full and independent audit. I have access to the company's financials at a level Marcus can't block. But I don't have the context. I don't know where to look. You do." A jolt, like an electric current, shot through Sophia. This wasn't a social call. This was a job offer. "What are you asking me to do, Arthur?" "I'm asking you to find the smoking gun, Sophia. Marcus thinks he's fighting you, a woman he wronged. He has no idea he's about to be fighting me. I've already set up a secure, encrypted data room. The link is on its way to your new email. I want you to go through every line item, every contract, every email I send you. Find me the evidence I need to not just fire him, but to bury him." For the first time since she'd walked out of that boardroom, the fog of despair lifted. The woman who had been fired was a victim. The woman on the phone with Arthur Donovan was a weapon. "I won't let you down, Arthur," she said, her voice no longer hoarse, but cold and clear as steel. "I know," he replied. "Get to work." Sophia worked with a singular, ferocious focus. Her tiny beige apartment became a war room. She didn't just have a purpose, she had a vendetta, and it was backed by the full financial weight of Donovan Capital. Arthur fed her a steady stream of data from the company's back end, P&L statements, expense reports, email chains from the executive team, and most importantly, the Project Phoenix development logs. To a normal person, it was a mountain of noise. To Sophia, it was a story. She worked 20-hour days, fueled by black coffee and a cold rage. The first layer was obvious, the Ben Thorne Innovations shell. But that was just the appetizer. "He's sloppy," she muttered to herself, tracing a new series of payments. Marcus and Chloe weren't just siphoning money, they were actively sabotaging Project Odyssey. She found emails where Marcus had ordered her lead engineer, a man named Ben Carter, to deprioritize the Odyssey 2.0 security patch in favor of designing a new logo for Phoenix. Then she found the second shell company, This one registered in the Cayman Islands. It was called Aura Holdings Limited. This one was more sophisticated. They were using this entity to hire consultants from Eastern Europe, cut-rate developers who were building the Project Phoenix app. She dug into the code itself. Arthur gave her access to the Phoenix beta. It took her less than an hour to find the truth. "Oh my God," she breathed, staring at her screen. The code wasn't just bad, it was stolen. They had lifted huge proprietary chunks of her Odyssey platform, the very platform she had designed, and plugged it into their flashy, useless app. They were violating their own company's IP, but the final, fatal piece of the puzzle, the smoking gun Arthur had asked for, came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. She was cross-referencing the invoices from Aura Holdings Limited with the Project Phoenix budget. The numbers didn't add up. There was a $10 million discrepancy, a $10 million black hole. She traced the payments. Marcus had approved a strategic acquisition of a small defunct data analytics firm, but the money hadn't gone to that firm. It had been rerouted. She followed the digital trail through 3 different banks until it landed. It landed in a private wealth management account under the name Marcus Thorne. He wasn't just embezzling millions, he was actively liquidating the company's assets and diverting them into his personal offshore account. He wasn't planning to run Aura Tech. He was planning to run it into the ground, take the money, and disappear, leaving the investors and employees with a bankrupt shell. Project Phoenix was never meant to succeed. It was a smoke screen, a distraction to cover the biggest heist of his life. She picked up the phone. "Arthur," she said, her voice shaking, not with fear, but with adrenaline. "I've got him. It's not just fraud. It's not just IP theft. It's a full-blown liquidation. He's robbing the vault." There was a heavy silence on the other end. "Good," Arthur Donovan said. "My jet's on its way to Austin. Call Tara. Tell her to be at the offices of Vincent and Elkins at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'm calling an emergency investor meeting. It's time to take out the trash." The emergency meeting was not held at Aura Tech headquarters. It was held in the largest, most intimidating conference room at Vincent and Elkins, the most powerful law firm in Texas. The air crackled with hostility. Marcus and Chloe walked in at 10:05 a.m., 5 minutes late, projecting an air of annoyed arrogance. They clearly believed this meeting was about their Phoenix funding. "Arthur," Marcus said, extending a hand. "Good to see you in Austin. I'm telling you, you're going to be thrilled with our Phoenix projections." Arthur Donovan, sitting at the head of the massive table and flanked by 2 severe-looking lawyers, did not extend his hand. "Sit down, Marcus." The VCs and independent directors who had sat by and watched Sophia's execution were already there. They looked pale and nervous. They had clearly been briefed. "Where are your lawyers, Marcus?" Arthur asked. I didn't think I'd need them," Marcus said, his smile faltering. Chloe nervously checked her reflection in her phone. "You've made another mistake," Arthur said. "This is not a funding meeting. This is an inquiry into multiple counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, and gross negligence." Marcus went white. "Now, wait a minute. You can't just—" "I can," Arthur said, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "And I have. We've spent the last 2 weeks conducting a full, independent audit of your tenure as CEO." "An audit? Based on what? The ramblings of a disgruntled ex-employee?" Marcus scoffed, trying to regain his footing. "No," Arthur said, "based on the evidence. But you're right. We should bring in our lead auditor." He nodded to the door. The door opened, and Sophia Reyes walked in. If Marcus looked like he'd seen a ghost, it was a ghost he'd slept with. Sophia was not the broken woman who had been escorted out by security. She was dressed in a razor-sharp, dark grey suit her hair pulled back. She carried a single, slim laptop. She didn't look at Marcus, she looked at Arthur. "Miss Reyes, please proceed," Arthur said. Chloe whispered, "What is she doing here?" Sophia plugged her laptop into the room's projector. She didn't use slides, she just projected the bank statements. On October 12th, Sophia began, her voice resonating with cold, hard clarity. Mr. Thorne and Ms. Bennett established Ben Thorne Innovations. Over the next 3 weeks, they transferred $5 million in company funds to this shell, disguised as consulting fees for Project Phoenix. She clicked. The wire transfers appeared on the screen. Mr. Thorne then established Aura Holdings Limited in the Cayman Islands, through which he engaged in the theft of Auratech's proprietary Odyssey code, a direct violation of his fiduciary duty and multiple intellectual property laws. She clicked. The side-by-side code comparison appeared. Even the laymen in the room could see the identical blocks. Marcus was sputtering. This is taken out of context. This is proprietary data. She's a criminal." "She's a material witness, Mr. Thorne," one of Arthur's lawyers interjected. "Please be quiet." "And finally," Sophia said, her voice dropping, "the strategic acquisition of Data Core Analytics." She projected the final transfer, the $10 million leaving Auratech's account, and the corresponding identical deposit into a private wealth account in Zurich. The account name was clearly visible, Marcus J. Thorne. The room was utterly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Chloe Bennett looked like she was going to be physically sick. Marcus stared at the screen. He was trapped. There was no spin, no charisma, no escape. Sophia looked at him. For the first time, she looked directly at her husband. "You're not a visionary, Marcus," she said, her voice quiet but carrying across the entire room. "You're just a common thief." Arthur Donovan let the silence hang for a full minute, forcing Marcus to stew in his own public execution. "I believe," Arthur finally said, "that we have seen enough. The investor group has already been in discussion. We are prepared to vote on 2 motions." Marcus, in a last, desperate gamble, slammed his hand on the table. "You can't. I'm the CEO. I'm the chairman. I'll sue every single person in this room." "You'll be in prison, son," Arthur said, his patience gone. "You've stolen from us. The board of directors has a duty to the shareholders, and right now, you are the single greatest liability this company has ever faced." He turned to the shaken board members. "Motion 1, the immediate removal of Marcus Thorne as CEO, chairman, and employee of Auratech Solutions, for cause citing gross negligence, wire fraud, and embezzlement. All in favor?" Every single hand in the room went up, even Marcus's hand-picked directors. "Motion carried," Arthur said. He nodded to the door. 2 very real, very large police officers, whom Arthur had waiting in the hall, entered the room. "Marcus Thorne," one of the officers said, "you're under arrest." You did this!" Marcus shrieked at Sophia as the officers pulled his hands behind his back. "You ruined me!" "You ruined yourself, Marcus," Sophia said, turning her back to him as they led him away. Chloe Bennett was frozen in her chair, tears streaming down her face. I just did what he told me to. I didn't know about the Zurich account." "Save it for the district attorney, Ms. Bennett," Arthur's lawyer said, handing her a subpoena. "You're fired. Get out." Chloe scrambled from the room, sobbing. The room was quiet again, the toxic energy gone. Arthur Donovan looked at the remaining board members. "Which brings us to motion 2, he said. "Auratech is in crisis. It has been mismanaged, its IP has been compromised, and its finances are in shambles. There is only one person in the world who knows this company well enough to save it." He looked directly at Sophia, who was quietly packing her laptop. I move to appoint Sophia Reyes as the new interim CEO and chairwoman of the Board of Auratech Solutions, effective immediately, with a compensation package to be drawn up that includes a retroactive vesting of all shares withheld from her. Seconded, one of the VCs said quickly. All in favor? Every hand went up. Arthur Donovan stood and walked over to Sophia. He, finally, extended his hand. Congratulations, Madam CEO, he said. Sophia looked at him, at the board members who now looked at her with a mixture of awe and terror, and took his hand. A jolt of electricity didn't just pass through her, it came from her. Thank you, Arthur, she said. Gentlemen, I accept. My first act as CEO is to shut down Project Phoenix and divert all remaining resources back to Odyssey 2.0. My second is to call Ben Carter and my old engineering team and offer them whatever it takes to come back. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to rebuild. She walked out of the conference room, not as a victim, but as the new, undisputed queen of the Austin tech scene. The walk from the elevator back to the executive floor of Auratech was the longest of Sophia's life, longer even than the walk of shame she'd been forced to take weeks prior. This time, the silence in the open plan office was not one of pity. It was one of pure, unadulterated shock. The whispers had already spread. Marcus was arrested, Chloe was fired, and Sophia Reyes was back. She wasn't just back, she was in charge. She walked with a steady, unhurried pace. Arthur Donovan had stayed behind at the law firm to handle the press, a task he seemed to relish, but the two VCs and the independent directors had flanked her, their faces pale, their allegiance now absolute. They were the men who had silently watched her execution, and now they looked like schoolboys who had been caught by the headmistress. Gentlemen, she said to them as they reached the glass-walled CEO's office, her office now. I need the boardroom in 10 minutes. I want every senior VP, every director, and every team lead in that room. If they were a Marcus appointee, tell them attendance is not optional. They scurried off. Sophia paused at the door to the office. The nameplate, Marcus Thorne, CEO, was still there. She ripped it off the wall and dropped it on the floor, the metal clattering loudly. She didn't go in. Not yet. She walked past it, to the COO's office that had once been hers, the one Chloe had so gleefully claimed. It was, predictably, a mess of fashion magazines, mood boards for Project Phoenix, and half-empty champagne flutes from some premature celebration. She wrinkled her nose, turned around, and walked into the main boardroom. One by one, the leadership team filed in. They were terrified. The air crackled with fear. These were the people who had either enabled Marcus, looked the other way, or been too scared to speak up. Sophia stood at the head of the table. She didn't sit. Good morning, she said, her voice cutting through the silence. As of 30 minutes ago, Marcus Thorne was removed as CEO by the board and arrested by the Austin Police Department for multiple counts of wire fraud and embezzlement. A collective gasp. Chloe Bennett has been terminated for her involvement. Their project, Project Phoenix, is, as of this moment, defunct. It is over. She let that sink in. I am Sophia Reyes, and as of 31 minutes ago, I am your new CEO and chairwoman of the board. She looked around the table, making eye contact with every single person. This is not a celebration, she continued, her voice cold and hard. This is a triage. This company is bleeding. We have been lied to, we have been stolen from, and our reputation is by now in flames. Marcus and Chloe were symptoms of a disease, a culture of flash over substance. That culture ends today. I know who in this room believed in the work, and I know who just cashed the checks. For those of you who were loyal to Odyssey, I see you. For those of you who were loyal only to Marcus, you have 1 hour to clear your desks. Human resources will have your severance packets ready. Security will escort you out. A vice president in marketing, a smarmy man Marcus had hired from a rival, began to bluster. You can't just— I can, Sophia snapped. And I just did. Your name was first on my list, Greg. You have 55 minutes. The man's face went purple, but he saw the steel in her eyes. He stood, gathered his notepad, and fled the room. 2 other directors quietly followed him. The remaining dozen people looked at her, breathing shallowly. For the rest of you, Sophia said, her tone shifting slightly. Your probation begins now. We have 1 priority, and 1 priority only, saving Project Odyssey 2.0. It was the engine of this company, and it will be our salvation. I will be in the Odyssey war room in 15 minutes. I expect my real team to be there. She turned and walked out, leaving them to their choices. Her first call wasn't to a lawyer or an investor. It was to her old lead engineer, Ben Carter, the man she'd hired right out of MIT, the one Marcus had demoted. He picked up on the second ring. Sophia, I heard a rumor. Are you— I'm back, Ben, she said, the words feeling heavy and real. I'm in the war room. I can't do this without you. There was a pause, and she heard him grab his keys. I'll be there in 10. That first week was a blur of righteous fire and forensic accounting. Sophia barely slept. She had an air mattress moved into a small conference room, subsisting on black coffee and the granola bars Arthur Donovan had his assistant send over by the caseload. She, Ben, and the 4 other Odyssey loyalists she'd rehired on day 1, all with massive raises and an apology, dove into the company's code and financials. The damage was far, far worse than she had imagined in her worst nightmares. He didn't just steal the Odyssey code for Phoenix, Ben said, his face pale after a 36-hour coding session. He corrupted it. He had those offshore developers build the Phoenix app on top of the Odyssey source. It's like they built a gaudy nightclub on top of a nuclear reactor's foundation. It's unstable. It's riddled with security holes and— Oh God, Sophia. What? She said, her stomach knotting. He never implemented the Odyssey 2.0 security patches, the ones we've been begging him to approve for 9 months. He thought it would slow down the Phoenix integration. Sophia closed her eyes. Odyssey 1.0 is our core product. It's what's in the field. It's running power grids, water treatment plants. It's running our biggest clients right now. And it's wide open, Ben finished. If a moderately skilled hacker knew what to look for, they could turn off the lights in half of Texas. Sophia felt sick. This wasn't just fraud anymore. This was catastrophic negligence. Her first act as CEO had been to shut down Project Phoenix. Her second was to authorize the largest emergency patch and recall in the company's history. She got on the phone, personally, with the CTOs of their top 20 clients. She didn't use marketing speak. She told them the truth. This is Sophia Reyes, CEO of Auratech. We have identified a critical vulnerability in the Odyssey platform, a failure of the previous leadership. I am telling you this because my team has developed a patch, and we need to take your system offline for 2 hours tonight at 2 a.m. to implement it. I will be personally supervising the update. It was a colossal gamble. It exposed their flaw, but it was the only way. To her astonishment, the clients, who had been fobbed off by Marcus's team for months, were relieved. Thank God, one CTO from a major utility said. We knew something was wrong. Welcome back, Ms. Reyes. What do you need from us? For 72 hours, Sophia and her team worked, slept, and ate in the server room, patching their clients, one by one, securing the foundation of the company. She was an architect, reinforcing a building in the middle of an earthquake. While the technical battle raged, the legal and personal battle continued. The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Marcus, in his orange jumpsuit, tried to play the victim at the first deposition. "She's a vindictive," he started, but his own lawyer, a court-appointed defender after his assets were frozen, put a hand on his arm. "Mr. Thorne, I would advise you to answer the question." Sophia sat opposite him, her face impassive. She was there as a material witness for the state and as the plaintiff in their divorce. "Marcus," she said, her voice clear and carrying across the sterile room. "The prenup you had me sign stated you retained all shares as founding CEO. Now that you have been removed for cause, that clause is null and void. Furthermore, the $10 million you transferred to Zurich was from a joint company asset account, which, as your wife, I am entitled to half of." Marcus's jaw dropped. "But don't worry," Sophia continued, leaning in. "I don't want your stolen money. I'm waiving my right to it." "Then, what do you want?" he whispered, confused. "I want the house. I want the cars. I want the art. I want every ill-gotten luxury you bought with my work to be sold, with all proceeds going into a restitution fund for the Auratech employees whose 401ks you gambled away, and I want you to sign this." Her lawyer, Tara, slid a single piece of paper across the table. It was a formal relinquishment of the name Thorne from Ben Thorne Innovations. "You," Sophia said, "are not allowed to attach your name to anything I own ever again. The company, the assets, and me." Marcus, defeated and broken, signed the paper. His trial was a foregone conclusion. He took a plea deal, 7 years in federal prison. Chloe Bennett, who testified against him in exchange for a lighter sentence, received 2 years probation and fled the state, her name permanently blackened in the tech world. With the legal drama settled and the Odyssey platform stabilized, Sophia could finally turn her attention to the future. The company was smaller now. She had laid off nearly 30% of the workforce, mostly the marketing, sales, and strategy teams Marcus had bloated. The culture shifted dramatically. The office became quieter, more focused. The VR lounge was converted into a new R&D lab. The gourmet chefs were replaced by high-quality, catered lunches so the engineers wouldn't have to leave the zone. Sophia herself was a new kind of leader. She wasn't Marcus, the charismatic showman. She was the architect. She spent most of her days not in the CEO's office, which she finally had repainted in warm, earthy tones and filled with whiteboards, but in the trenches with her engineers. There was a moment in the 4th month that became company legend. A young engineer, barely a year out of college, was stuck on a complex data streaming bug in the Odyssey 2.0 code. He'd been at it for 48 hours. Sophia, walking the floor with a cup of coffee at 9 p.m., saw his frustration. "What's the problem, Alex?" she asked. He explained. She listened, then pulled up a chair. "May I?" She took the keyboard. Her fingers flew. She wasn't just typing. She was composing. She refactored 3 of his core functions, rewrote a query, and then explained, line by line, why she was doing it, how his approach was creating a data bottleneck, and how her way streamlined the process. In 10 minutes, she had solved a problem he'd spent 2 days on. "Don't see the problem," she said, smiling at him. "See the architecture. You're building a bridge. Don't just look at the next brick. Look at the whole river." That engineer would, as the story was told, follow her into a burning building. That was the loyalty she now commanded. It wasn't bought with parties. It was earned with competence. The 5-month mark brought a new challenge. Forbes magazine. They were running a cover story on the Auratech scandal and wanted an exclusive interview. "It's time," Arthur Donovan told her over the phone. "They're going to write it with or without you. Better to control the narrative." The journalist was tough. She sat in Sophia's new office, recorder on the table. "Ms. Reyes, let's be blunt. You were fired by your husband. He replaced you with his mistress. He ran this company into the ground. And now you're back. They're calling you the Iron Lady of Silicon Hills." Sophia leaned back in her chair. "Iron is brittle, Ms. Varma. It shatters. I prefer steel. It's forged in fire, and it gets stronger." "And the fire was Marcus Thorne?" "The fire was mediocrity," Sophia corrected her gently. "It was flash over substance. It was the idea that a good presentation could replace a good product. My husband, my ex-husband, was a brilliant marketer. He could sell anything, but he couldn't build anything. Auratech was built on an engine, my engine. He just kept painting the car, not realizing he was letting the engine rust. I'm not a lady of anything. I'm an engineer, I'm an architect, and I'm here to rebuild." "What about Project Phoenix?" "A fantasy," Sophia said, waving a hand. "It's been dismantled. Our future, our entire future, is Project Odyssey 2.0. It's what I was building before I was interrupted. And it's what we're launching next month." The journalist raised an eyebrow. "That's an aggressive timeline." "It's a necessary one," Sophia said. "We're done with delays." The 6th-month mark, launch night for Odyssey 2.0. The entire company was in the atrium, which Sophia had converted into a command center. The mood was electric. This wasn't just a product launch, it was a resurrection. Sophia stood at the front, Ben Carter at her side. "This is it," she said to the room. "This isn't just code, this is our declaration. This is the new Auratech. This is what we've all been fighting for. Ben, do the honors." Ben, his eyes shining, hit the Enter key. The new platform began to roll out, migrating all of their clients. For an hour, the room was silent except for the frantic clatter of keyboards as teams monitored server loads, data integrity, and client-side dashboards. Then, the first call came in. It was the CTO from the Texas utility, the one who had been so relieved when Sophia first called. "Sophia," he said, and she could hear the grin in his voice. "I'm looking at my main grid dashboard. Your Odyssey 2.0 just went live. In the first 10 minutes, it's rerouted our power flow, identified 3 pre-failure points in our transformers, and I think it just saved us about $2 million. Sophia put him on speaker. "Say that again, Mike." He did. The room exploded. It wasn't just a success, it was a revolution. The data streamed in. 40% efficiency gains for one client, 60% reduction in downtime for another. It was faster, smarter, and more secure than anything on the market. It was, in a word, perfect. A week later, the Forbes magazine hit the stands. The cover was a striking photo of Sophia, not in a server room, but in her new office, blueprints for Odyssey 3.0, already on the whiteboard behind her. The headline, the one she had given them herself, "The Re-Architect, How Sophia Reyes Rebuilt Auratech from the Foundation Up." That same day, her divorce was finalized. The last legal tie to Marcus was severed. She called the final all-hands meeting of her first 6 months as CEO. She stood on the small stage in the atrium, looking out at the faces of her team, her loyal, brilliant, resilient team. 6 months ago, she began, her voice echoing in the packed room. This company was on the brink of collapse. We were betrayed by a culture of lies, arrogance, and shortcuts. We were told that a flashy app was more important than a stable foundation. We were told that image mattered more than substance. She looked around, locking eyes with Ben, with Alex, with the faces who had been with her in the trenches. They were wrong. The room erupted in applause. "We have been through hell," she continued, her voice thick with emotion. "And we have come back stronger. We are not just survivors. We are builders. We are architects. We didn't just save Aura-Tech. We refounded it. The work we've done, the launch of Odyssey 2.0, isn't an ending. It's the new beginning." "Marcus Thorne tried to burn this place to the ground," she said, her voice dropping. "He did me a favor. He forced me to see what was wrong. He forced me to fight for what was right. And he cleared out all the dead wood." A laugh rippled through the crowd. "This company," she concluded, raising her glass of water, "is not and will never again be about one charismatic face. It is about the work. It is about the code. It is about our vision. Now, I've just signed off on bonuses for everyone who was here for the launch. Go celebrate. You've earned it. We've got a lot of work to do on Monday." That night, Sophia didn't stay late. For the first time, she left the office at 6 p.m. She went home, not to the cold mansion or the sterile apartment, but to a new, sun-filled condo overlooking the river. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat on her balcony. She had lost her husband, her best friend, and her job. She had gained her freedom, her power, and her legacy. She had been fired, she had been broken, and she had been reinstated. But she wasn't the COO anymore, living in the shadow of a charlatan. She was the CEO. She was the architect. And as she looked out at the lights of the city, she knew, deep in her bones, that she was, for the first time in her life, truly and completely in charge. The new dawn was here, and it was hers. Sophia's story isn't just about revenge, it's about resilience. She was pushed out, humiliated, and betrayed by the two people she should have been able to trust the most. But she didn't just get even. She got everything. She proved that true talent and integrity can't be buried by lies and arrogance. In the end, the investors didn't just reinstate her. They bet on the real architect of their success. What did you think of Marcus's fatal mistake in underestimating Sophia? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you were inspired by Sophia's incredible comeback, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear a story of true justice, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life drama and unforgettable stories. Don't miss what's coming next.